Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 7 Episode 10, Out in the Open. Before we begin though, don't forget to watch this episode first on roosterteeth.com to support the show and avoid spoilers. And also, a big shout out to all of you who sent me birthday wishes last week here on YouTube and on Twitter. With massive thanks as well to Tyrian and Tess, who did these awesome gift arts for me. Thank you all so much for making my day feel even more special. Of course, you guys also dropped your thoughts on the last episode in the comments, so let's head to the viewer comments section. One big positive for many was Jacques' downfall, with Tristan Lawhorn commenting their approval of how the series has shown abusers at their weakest when they lose control, while Maxis Fox 23 is still remaining cautious over Ironwood and how he may act in the future once the mayhem has died down. And finally, Nathan Z hopes that after Oscar used Ozpin's memories to aid his comments, the farm boy might gain wisdom rather than lose his sense of self. Keep on leaving those comments, folks, and tune in next week to see if you get featured in the next episode review. So, last week's episode kicked off the volume's final arc with a promising tone. Jacques finally got his comeuppance, Ironwood and Robin were able to find common ground, and many secrets were laid bare with a largely positive effect. But things still don't look hot for Mantle, with the Grimm storming the streets, Watts and Tyrian still looking to cause more trouble, and Cinder and Neo finally making their volume debut with worrying implications for their schemes. We're now diving headfirst into what should be a wave of high energy, high stakes fights. But was this episode able to maintain a strong experience in amongst the chaos? Or was it all madness, no reward? Let's find out. We open with something that I already fell in love with. Another well-crafted tracking shot panning through the city. We've been spoiled for top quality camera work this volume, and these long, seamless sequences have been some of the best of the bunch. RWBY's long charge in the volume premiere, Harriet's sprint through the Gigas in the mines, Neon vs Nora, and now this. It's simply brilliant work that helps show how big the widespread action is and how unending the Grimm attack is no matter where you look. Excellent way to kick off the episode and set an immediate marker of scale of Mantle's peril. And we also see the variety of Grimm has expanded. Not only do we have the Megaliaths, Tyrexes and Sabers last seen in the episode beforehand, there's also Atlas variants of the classic Beowulfs, Neverwars and Ursai, Grimm that, as noted with their more fragmented spikes and markings, have accustomed themselves to the harsh cold, unlike the bog standard versions. Thankfully for the citizens, help has arrived as the heroes and the Aesops begin their efforts to evacuate Mantle. We also learn that before Blake went to Beacon, she also went to the Prometheus school of running away from things, as she has to count on her various dust clones to avoid getting wrecked by a stampede, instead of, running to the side somewhere. But in actual fact, she's leading the Soul Megaliath right into the path of Elm, who makes for one hell of a roadblock, not only halting it in place, but lifting the big mammoth off the ground, and with Yank's charges attached, sends it flying into the air to blow up at a safe distance. Hot damn, Elm! I'm sure some of that power comes from her aura and semblance, but that's some insane levels of brute strength to hold off something that big and fling it like a used tissue. She's been due a standout moment like that, and now I want to see her go up against Nora in an unarmed brawl, just to see who comes out on top. Problem is that as good as everyone is doing so far, the safe spot is getting packed, and the people are getting restless that there's seemingly no transport aid from Ironwood despite the Grimm attack getting worse. But lo and behold, hope does arrive on the screens in the form of the General and Robin, who are not only standing side by side, but are also holding hands with a truthful green glow. Yep, Robin's using her semblance to help prove the legitimacy of what's about to be said, that being the reveal of Salem as the world-spanning threat and the cause of the recent issues in Mantle through the actions of Watts and Tyrian. These two are showing unity during this speech to help fight off what their enemies have been trying to do, divide the kingdom through fear, infighting, and feeding into the Grimm's hunger for negative emotions. And now they want the people to follow suit, to show their enemies that Atlas and Mantle can stand united as one, and they won't let people like Salem and her forces break the kingdom. It's a pretty passionate speech, backed by an inspiring melody for that added weight, and I do love the use of Robin's semblance in a manner that proves beneficial to Ironwood's plans. You know, it's kind of ironic considering how this power was almost said to possibly cause more division during the interrogation not too long ago. Robin also voicing her support and trust in Ironwood also helps alleviate some of the doubts over whether the people of Mantle would trust the General after everything that's happened lately, in a way that makes it easier to accept this quick turnaround. After all, who better to help garner a change in the public's opinion in a short span of time than the one person who has constantly been there to support them, and can prove without question that Ironwood's intentions are good. Not to mention, despite their current issues with the people of Atlas, the people of Mantle still depend on the military for situations like these. They just need that sign of hope that someone is willing to fight for them and keep them safe, which this speech and Robin's trust in Ironwood is looking to make clear. The good news though is that the RWBY didn't just have this speech be the only effort made to win back the people's trust. Ironwood also backs up his words with action, as he then explains where the resources for the city went to, revealing the Atlas Communications Tower, which he claims is now complete, and thus the military presence meant to protect the project can now be used to evacuate the city. Now the people begin to turn a corner and show support once again for Ironwood, and this speech also has ripple effects elsewhere in the city, like giving Jean the green light to show a bit of his experience marshalling a group of people with the aid of Ren, Vine, and some of the kids from his patrol shift. It's a nice little bit of levity in amongst the tension, and it also acts as another example of Jean becoming a true huntsman, inspiring people during times of danger. He'd honestly make for a great father someday, with how he guided the kids to show their own strength in a crisis. And now I am sad again. But seriously, it is good to see Jean showing some of his old goofy quirks whilst also displaying the maturity and leadership that he's best at, really cementing this turn to becoming the kind of huntsman he and Pyrrha both wanted him to be. Admittedly though, there was one bit during this sequence that I was a tad lost on at first, that being Ruby's comment. It was a tiny bit confusing, making it out like she was proud yet mainly surprised that Ironwood revealed Salem, when that was always part of his plans. But I also think that this is due to her having some doubts whether or not he would still show an attempt to defy Salem after learning about her immortality. It's nothing too major a bump in things, but it was a side comment that I did need a bit of time after the episode to truly understand what the implications were. But switching to people who aren't happy with the situation, we watch as Watts and Tyrian process their plans to divide the kingdom falling apart. Tyrian especially getting pissed that the people are becoming united, with some excellent rage in Josh Grail's voice, while Watts is trying to wrap his head around how he missed the Amity Tower project, before switching focus back to changing plans. Side note, with Watts not knowing about the Amity Tower until now, I feel confident in saying that the Aesop's traitor theory is now dead, since surely that would be something any member of the Aesops would reveal if they were a mole working alongside Watts. Anyway, Watts believes that Ironwood has messed up by revealing the Amity Tower is now defenseless, so the Mad Doctor will head up there to see what trouble he can get up to, which means that Tyrian will need to keep their enemy's attention on Mantle, and the Psycho knows just the perfect way to break the people's morale once more, as he catches on about Robin heading to a sector personally. Of course, these two aren't the only devilish duo in town. Cinder and Neo have also been listening in on the events in Mantle, and Cinder's not too happy to hear her old allies from Salem's Law are here. Of course, with Cinder being out of the loop lately, she wasn't privy to when Salem changed the timeline of her plans and opted to attacking Atlas over Vacuo. She also seems to have an issue with getting the right reflection in the window. Oops. Clearly, Cinder wanted to get her payback on RWBY without Salem or anyone from her circle finding out, thus why she's got her deal with Neo. But it also seems like she has other goals in mind, as she orders her muted partner to now go and steal the lamp from Oscar. I guess Cinder hopes to win herself back into Salem's good books by regaining the relic that she lost at Haven, and not only that, she also wants to find the Winter Maiden, gain her power, and acquire the Atlas's Staff of Creation. All of which is of course very bad news if she pulls it off, though I wonder if Salem may come across Winter if she does come close to Freya's location. After all, we don't see Winter at all in this episode, and if she's not aiding in the rescue of Mantle, she must be protecting Freya as the next in line for her powers. If so, the prospect of Cinder versus Winter, maiden powers or no, is an exciting prospect, one I know that many have had actually for quite some time, and I am super down to see that clash take place. Also, I love Neo's reactions in this scene. The RWBY always do a stellar job making sure her body language does the talking for her, and while her usual facial expressions were top quality as ever, using her transforming into RWBY as she brings up wanting to focus on her, not Cinder's goals, was a pretty sharp directive approach. It was a cool way to touch on the topic in a way that suited Neo's personality, and you could just tell from the displeased look on her face in both forms that Neo cares very little for Cinder right now and her whims, making the odds of her backstabbing Cinder all the more likely. But it also works as a cautionary tease to what might happen when Neo does look to hunt down Oscar. It's very possible now that Neo could disguise herself as RWBY to get close to the farm boy without suspicion, and then she can steal the relic and potentially kill the young lad. With Oscar being as inexperienced as he is, it's up in the air whether or not he will catch on in time before his health is at risk, and even if he does catch on in time, he's still going to be stuck in a one-on-one fight against Neo, one of the most skilled fighters in the entire series. Suddenly, this is a fight that I'm both eager to see and fearful about at the same time, though perhaps this might help out the farm boy, forcing him into a situation where he's able to unlock his semblance, or tap into more of Ozpin's power so he can fight on the same level as him, without him being in control. That might be able to help his odds of winning, but either way, I hope the RWBY are able to deliver on the visuals for what should be a nail-biting fight for survival. Back in Mantle, and the evacuations have begun while the others keep up the fight against the Grimm, Elm especially stealing the show again by showing off her other big guns. But over with RWBY and Harriet, they are facing the frightening task of fighting what looks to be an alpha Mega Goliath, judging by its bigger tusks and spikes. But they also get backup from Penny, who has finally arrived on the scene from whatever was keeping her so busy all this time. This now means that Penny can help Harriet distract the monster while Ruby tries calling forth her Silver Eyes power, with a little dash of Indomitable playing in the background for added emotional effect. But Ruby's focus is shaken by the Alpha's stomping, which I'm kinda glad to see, honestly. Yeah, there's the obvious joke that this is not the season finale, so Ruby can't use her eyes just yet, but I don't want to see Ruby instantly go for the Silver Eyes power the moment a super tough Grim comes her way, at least this early on in her experience. Doing so would swiftly lessen the threat level of any future encounter with a boss level Grim, turning it into a simple matter of just switching on the flashing eyes and win, rather than an actual challenge meant to push Ruby and company to their limits. Of course, Ruby does need to learn by using the power more and more, harkening back to Maria's trial by fire comment, but having these moments where something stops her from using it all the time makes sure that fights like these are able to still be a suspenseful challenge for her normal abilities. And Ruby even takes a look to her side where Jin's lamp would have been, subtly suggesting that she herself feels she needs more time to truly activate the power in the best way possible. At the very least, this failed attempt does address why she can't just use her power all the time, because she still has a ways to go until she can use it as flawlessly as Maria did, without hesitation or build-up, and with a resounding chance for success. Still though, this does mean that these three are having a rough time with the Alpha. Penny gets launched by the hulking mammoth's hard to damage body, and to make matters worse, Harriet's weapon gets damaged and her aura breaks. I know a lot of folks have pointed out that the Aesops currently break the typical 4 in a group trend that the series has, and they think that this could mean that in the future someone may die. But I hope it's not Harriet, since she's my favourite of the bunch. Still, this doesn't really look good in her favour, and the death flags are now waving frantically. Good thing then that Penny gets back into the game and just straight up fires a Kamehameha, hand pose and everything. It's not enough to kill the beast, only managing to halt its charge, but another laser manages to weaken one of the tusks so Ruby can slice it off, turning it into the perfect tool to pierce the soft underbelly and finally kill the mammoth. A short but very cool fight indeed, with quite the creative and flashy finish, and having Penny being vital in the victory also helps her win back the praise of the Mantle public, something she rightfully deserves, and it's a nice uplifting moment in amongst this carnage. It also acts as a smart tone shift piece, as suddenly our happy mood turns worried as we watch Tyrian come across Robin alone in an alleyway. And boy, Josh is just having the time of his life with his delivery here. It's crazy to think that a character as unhinged and vicious as Tyrian isn't his usual type of role, and even though he's not had much in the way of speaking lines this volume, Josh continues to knock it out of the park whenever Tyrion's on screen, especially here as he perfectly displays Tyrion's venomous charismatic glee at the thought of killing the source of the people's hope, which he finds so sickening. However, what he didn't expect until the last minute is this was a trap, as suddenly Qrow and Clover drop in to aid Robin, turning this into a 3-on-1 fight, which normally you would say that's unfair for the heroes to do, but come on, this is Tyrion. I think fairness isn't a factor, especially when he's still a threat regardless of the odds. This has been something that fans have been waiting to see ever since the opening teased this, and obviously there's some deep reasons at play for why Qrow and Robin want a piece of Tyrion, one nearly being killed by him and the other wanting payback for the people he's killed. But something I'm curious about is regarding the man who wasn't in that sequence in the opening, Clover, who says that the others aren't the only ones with a grudge against Tyrion. That makes it sound like Clover has more to personally gain from taking down Tyrion than just stopping a mad serial killer. And shout out to Jeremy for this suggestion, but what if it's to do with F. Pickerel, the Atlas soldier that was part of the team that arrested Tyrion in the past and then was later killed by him after he broke free. What if Qrow was connected to Clover, be it as friends, colleagues, or even lovers, and thus Clover wants payback on the man who killed him? That would then be quite the understandable reason to have a grudge with someone. In either way, this is a solid way to fake out the audience and set up one of the most hotly anticipated fights of the volume. And that's not all, as we then cut to Amity Tower, where Watts finds the place isn't exactly as complete as Ironwood's comments suggested, which indeed is the case, as this was another trap, this time for Watts, as the place goes into lockdown, leaving the Doctor alone with Ironwood, who makes quite the superhero landing. And what a perfect place for this battle too. General Ironwood in the location central to his biggest failure versus the man who twisted his machines and turned them against James and the people he's sworn to protect. We know Ironwood has had to struggle with his mental demons following such a massive defeat, and now he has a chance of redemption against someone who, in his own words, has always been a pain in his ass. There is still reason to be concerned though, not only because Ironwood may lose his mental coolness in trying to desperately make up for the past, but also with the fact that he's willingly locked himself in with the one person whose mastery of hacking can turn the arena into his home field advantage. And this rings true as Watts activates the Biome Selector, giving him time to deflect Ironwood's shot with some hard-light shields before ducking away mid-shifting. At least there's one positive from this. We finally get to see the gravity biome being used properly. For those of you who can't remember, during the Vital Tournament in Volume 3, the gravity biome was this floating platform of the arena that was only seen in the background during Penny's fight with Team Cardinal. We never actually saw it being used in the midst of action, but now it's making its long-awaited true debut, and with a nice neon paint job to boot. Definitely a plus point as someone who recalls feeling sad such a fun stage concept wasn't utilized in the past. And as the episode draws to a close, concerns over whether or not Watts is actually a threat in the fight seems to be true, as the Doctor pulls out quite the fancy looking pistol. Ooh boy, talk about setting the stage. Those final few minutes did a stellar job at capping off an episode full of enjoyable smaller bouts whilst laying the groundwork for the truly key fights to come, which is quite the feat given the episode's short runtime. The big emphasis on defeating the Grim in a safe way allowed for a lot of creative and visually pleasing sequences, and these unique methods of teamwork also acted as a nice example of just how tight the chemistry between our main heroes and the Aesops has become over the course of the volume. This episode honestly felt a lot like Volume 3's Battle of Beacon, an episode packed to the brim with action and some bright character moments sprinkled in that, while also being small by comparison to everything that follows, still left an entertaining mark on the viewer, whilst having enough substance to progress the narrative to the next page. In this case, the much bigger battles at play that will decide the overall fate of the kingdom, and the shift in the internal conflict between Atlas and Mantle. As discussed earlier, using Robin and her semblance as a bridging point in Ironwood's speech to win back the people of Mantle helped the swift mindset change have a smooth transition without it feeling too rushed or unnatural, since, like I said, the people just needed proof that Ironwood does care about them, which they got. Everything else though is just the context to explain why they've suffered lately. And that context, by the way, covered all the necessary ground about Salem and the reasoning for Ironwood's actions in a very cohesive manner, and I liked how it played into the traps. The levity that was also included was a nice big plus point, small enough dashes of comedy to not disrupt the tension, and instead they acted as breather moments so the viewer can ease up on their mood before the next suspenseful moment, again kinda like Battle of Beacon. And once more, I cannot give enough praise to the camera work and some of the musical touches scattered throughout the episode. Simply fantastic work that truly brought this chaotic war zone and all the mixed emotions at play to life. Again, for a pretty short episode in terms of runtime, it's quite remarkable how fulfilling this chapter was, whilst also giving us more than enough reason to get hyped for what's to come. Now we've got at least 4 massive clashes set to spark up, and I cannot help but feel after such a positive note that this chapter ended on, it's all done to leave us primed and ready for another body blow to our emotions. For now though, let's switch gears to my episode awards, starting with the scene of the episode, which goes to the Amity Trap. Honestly, the episode had a lot of strong scenes that I could have chose from, but this was such a pulse-pounding note to end the episode on, with some nice touches, like the gravity biome being used, and the emotional edge to this location and how it relates to Ironwood. Character of the episode wise, let's give it to Tyrian Qrow, as he pretty much was the star of every scene he was in, and a big part of that is cause of Josh Qrow, who also gets the voice acting gold star for his continuing top tier delivery that proves he really should get more roles like this in his resume. So, episode 10 is in the books, and once again, I'm just blown away by everything that was set up with only a handful of episodes still to go. Now we got a bundle of fights on the way that will shape not only the fate of the kingdom, but also the final note of this volume, and I cannot wait to see what unfolds. Hopefully it's worth the build up and the trimmed down runtimes, but for now, this episode was simply a joy to watch. Nothing out of this world or mind blowing, but certainly it was never boring at all. But those are just my thoughts, time to make sure you tell me yours. Were you surprised by how the speech turned out? What did you think about the action in this chapter? And what do you think will happen in the next batch of fights? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons and tick the notification box to make sure you get every new video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter at @KaitoDan for more on anything to do with RWBY, updates on future content for the channel, and more. But until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.